So today I'm going to be going over 10 reasonably priced designer fragrances that I would personally consider choosing over some of my most expensive niche fragrances if it came down to it. So what does that mean? Well, I want to break down the first half first. By affordable or reasonable, I mean in terms of what you get in return. You know, we're looking at the value of these. You know, some of these designers might be $80, $90, $100, which isn't cheap, might not even be affordable depending on your standards, but you do get a lot of bang for your buck. You get a lot of scent for that higher price. So it kind of works out to where if you have some deeper pockets and you purchase those, you're not getting gypped. You know, you're getting something that lives up to that value and offers a lot. And in terms of choosing them over my most expensive or overpriced niche scents, I mean, if I was either rebuilding my collection or if I had to, you know, get rid of some of those expensive scents, I would be okay with it because I have these really good designers that I can fall back on and get just as much, if not more, enjoyment and wear out of them. And so for these to be any sort of decent price, you know, you got to shop at discounters, whether you're talking about the ones in this video or even some of the niche fragrances out there. You always want to try to get them below retail if at all possible. And so we'll get things kicked off with this one here from Mugler. It is Angelman. Now this is usually right around $80 for 100 ml at discounters. Sometimes I think you can pick this one up for like 70. It just kind of depends when and where you're shopping. So somewhere around in that range, you know, anything over $80, I would say to maybe hold on and wait a minute because, you know, you're getting above retail at that point. And so this one is starting to get a little bit tricky to find sometimes, and when it comes to all of the others, those have been discontinued for quite some time now, and there are a ton of gems within this line. This is the original, and it's the only one still standing. I really hope they never get rid of this one, but you never know. You know, it's got coffee, patchouli, caramel, and honey with a ton of other notes. Huge note breakdown, very extensive, but this is a powerhouse of a scent. It's kind of coffee-oriented, a little bit chocolatey, sweet, powdery, dusty, syrupy with a little bit of a fresh balance also. There's a lot going on. And because of that, this is not for everybody. And that would make sense if they were to ever get rid of this one, because this is not the type of thing that the mass market is really going to be enjoying. And I'm surprised it's made it this far. And it's not to say that there isn't a cult following behind this one, because I'm sure there is, but in terms of just what works out there in the retail space, this isn't it. However, I think for the money, you get something that does offer a lot. You know, it's unique, it has great quality, great performance, and it rivals a lot of my other more expensive coffee scents and kind of patchouli scents in general over on the niche side of things. It smells kind of similar to a popular Kilian fragrance as well. And, you know, I love my Kilians, but they're more expensive. If I had to get rid of some of those, I could go for this and still be pretty happy. Next up, we have DIOR Homme Intense. So, you know, as far as I'm concerned, this could pass as a niche scent for me personally. You know, people who don't like this one will automatically say that it couldn't, just because they don't like it because of that you know, non-passionate feeling towards this one. But I do think when you break it down in terms of quality and the fact that this, along with pretty much the rest of the DIOR Homme line, is so unique and it pioneered such a different thing, I think they could have charged even more of a premium for it, and it could have done very well. You know, DIOR is not a niche brand, and I don't think it would have done so well in their more exclusive line because, they're not a niche brand. You know, but if a Parfums de Marly or you know, a Roja or one of those big niche brands would have put something out like this and was the pioneer of it, I think it could have gone crazy. But DIOR did it here in the designer line. So you're looking at about $100 for 100 ml, sometimes a bit more. And I think it's great stuff. You know, it's all about the iris, the cacao. It's a little bit chocolatey, powdery, sweet, dusty with some lavender in here. You guys know the DNA kind of has that makeup bag smell or whatever, but I love it. And if I had to get rid of some of my expensive iris scents or just some of my more expensive powdery, sweet fragrances in general, some of my niche stuff, and I could hold on to this, I would be perfectly fine with that. Next up is one of the best affordable vanilla scents that you can buy. It's Mercedes-Benz Club Black. This is, you know, usually around $50 or so for 100 ml, sometimes a bit less. Very reasonably priced considering what you get, which is straight up vanilla. You know, that is the focus. Vanilla, benzoin, some ambroxan. So it has the creamy, sweet, almost kind of vanilla extract, you know, sweetness, and kind of a syrupy nature from just that type of compound in here. The benzoin gives it more of a dusty, kind of powdery feel, and the ambroxan adds a little bit of a bright kick off the opening. It is fantastic, and it really rivals some more expensive vanillas out there. I'm not saying it's as good as those or better than those, but if you're on a budget, there is no reason that this wouldn't do the job for you. If you're looking for a standalone vanilla scent, this one is a must-have. Next up, we'll go with Prada Luna Rossa Black. One of my favorites from the line, one that is a little bit more hit or miss, you know, just because of how powdery it is. It's all about the tonka bean and the amber, and that's basically it. Very powdery. Make sure you're aware of that. I have to put that out there because this is the type of thing that you can get into and then completely get burned on because maybe you all of a sudden find out that you don't like overly powdery men's scents, which not everybody does. This isn't your traditionally masculine scent. It doesn't have the standard accords and kind of personality that you would expect from a more masculine scent. You know, it's different. And this DNA has been around for a while. I don't think Prada invented it. You know, there's like Bulgari Black and Midnight in Paris and things like that that do a similar tonka bean focused, very powdery smell, and both of those, or at least Bulgari Black was marketed for men. I think Midnight in Paris was more unisex potentially in terms of their marketing. Not that it matters. This can go both ways, but you know, Prada didn't invent it, but this is the only one around now that you can still purchase. And I'm glad that there's at least something out there that you can buy now to get into this DNA. You know, I'm not saying this is a one-to-one clone of those, but it definitely is in the same ballpark. And in terms of pricing, I think it retails for $130 or $135. If you're lucky on discounters, you can get the 100 ml for just around $100. So decent savings there. And that's about usually as good as it gets. There was a point where you could get all of these Luna Rossas for considerably less than that, but it's just, that's not the same world anymore. L'Homme Ideal Extreme by GUERLAIN. You know, technically a niche, I guess, if you want to, you know, really kind of dive in, which it is, but it's not an expensive niche. Next up, we have L'Homme Ideal Extreme by GUERLAIN. So it's a niche, but not an expensive niche, which is pretty nice. And of course, GUERLAIN does have an exclusive line, and they get very pricey. And because of that, I don't have a ton of them. But in terms of the L'Homme Ideal line, I've got all of them, and they are all amazing. A lot of which now are discontinued or hard to find, but stuff like this and the Eau de Parfum, the Eau de Toilette, and the L'Intense, you know, those are still easy to get. You've got Cool, and you've got Cologne, and you've got Sport that are just getting harder to find. Anyway, when it comes down to it, I really think I could be happy with any of them. You know, when it comes to wanting something unique and having to kind of forfeit some of my other more expensive items, I would be happy with having any sort of L'Homme Ideal line. Like if I only had to have one of these, or I could only have one of these, you know, I would have my preferences like this, but if I instead was only able to have the EDT, I would still be very happy to have it around. Because they're all good and they all do what they're trying to do very well. Like the original is the EDT is going to be a bit fresher. This is going to be sweeter with the tobacco and the plum. The Eau de Parfum has a cherry accord, which is unique and potentially not for everybody. So each one adds its own little personality and flair. But this is kind of my personal favorite. $100 or so on discounters, 100 ml. It's very reasonable considering there's nothing else out there that smells like this in particular, you know, aside from the other flankers within the line that share the DNA, but it's just so unique and it stands out in a crowd like no other. Even has good performance. It's great, great stuff. If you want something unique and different, more of a niche experience, more of a premium feel, at a very reasonable price. Just barely cracking the 3-digit price there with this one. It is an amazing purchase. Next up, we have LALIQUE Ombre Noir. This is really good stuff as well, and one that I didn't discover until actually this summer, which is kind of a weird time to pick it up because it's got tobacco leaf, cognac, and cinnamon. So not really much of a summer scent. However, it was one of those deals where Fragrance By ended up getting it in for a below retail price. I can't remember what it was, $60, maybe $70 is what they were having it for, something like that. Retail was just a touch over $100, I believe, maybe $130 or something. And I hadn't heard of it until they approached me and said, hey, FYI, we're getting some of this in and we think it's going to be something that people are interested in. So I said, okay. I went ahead and purchased it when it came in because I had no idea about it. And it was one of those things where I smelled it and I'm like, yet again, the perfect example of me sitting here thinking, where was I 3 or 4 years ago or whenever this was released, maybe even longer. So I wish I would have gotten this one sooner, would have had more time to enjoy it and more time to tell you guys about it because maybe you were in the same boat and didn't have any idea this existed. It's a really well done LALIQUE, great quality, a little bit more expensive than some of the others, but the tobacco, cognac, cinnamon mixture is great. Spicy, sweet, kind of mysterious smelling, has an evening kind of, I don't know, kind of an evening appeal, something very comforting about this one. It smells fantastic, especially for the upcoming fall season. You know, I would say this is a very reasonably priced scent, especially at discounters, and it's worth picking up. Sticking with the tobacco trend, we'll go with SPICEBOMB Extreme. You know, I've loved this for a very long time. It is one of the best designer tobaccos out there. You know, and this to me focuses even more on tobacco than the LALIQUE we just talked about. It's got vanilla, some black pepper along with that tobacco, of course. And it still has some of the SPICEBOMB DNA in there, but it's so much more grown up and refined. And man, it is just so good. I have said everything that needs to be said about this one a million times by now. So if you don't have this yet, seriously, pick it up. It is incredible. If you're looking for a designer tobacco scent, it's right around $100 that has a lot of vanilla and black pepper support to give it a sweetness and a little bit of a spicy kick to really, for lack of a better term, spice things up and just give it some edge and give it some variety. You got to go for this stuff. There are so many tobacco scents on the market, and especially when you jump over to niche, there are a ton of them as well. But I would have no problem with exclusively wearing this one and getting rid of my more expensive tobacco scents. Of course, I would never want to do that, but if I had to, and as long as I had this, I would be fine. Next up, we have Moustache Eau de Parfum by ROCHAS, and you guys know it's the mustache, or not the mustache, it's the mustache EDP, but it's the YSL Tuxedo DNA, which is a lot more expensive than this one. And back in the day, the only way I could afford to get Tuxedo was to split it out. So like the bottle I have now is almost empty. I haven't worn that much. I decanted it, and then I was left with the little partial. And you know, even when I had that, I didn't wear it a ton because I felt like I had to hold on to it. I've always loved the scent, you know, but it was one of those things where I was very stingy with it. Fast forward a few years later, this comes out, and now a lot of other clones or alternatives are out as well. And so for me, I just find myself wearing these more. Like, I don't think I've actually touched or really worn my bottle of Tuxedo in probably years. I always wear Mustache, and I've been wearing a lot of the newer clones. Fragrance World Suits, Alhambra, the Tux, Afnan Tarathi Brown, things like that. There's a lot of them out there, a lot of things to choose from. Now, why I like and still feature this one is because it's heavily inspired by Tuxedo. However, this one provides more of a twist than the others. The others are straight up clones. They are going and trying to get as close as they can to the original. A couple of them are even cloning the bottle. This one has more focus on the vanilla and the pink pepper, less patchouli in here, and it's kind of a tweaked version, which is why I like it. It kind of just takes that DNA and works it into something a little bit different. And it doesn't make it a unique scent. They don't get the rights to say that they came up with it, of course, but it's just kind of a nice little twist, I guess. And I still love it. I think it's great. And, you know, when it comes down to everything at the end of the day, this DNA is still so unique. Again, it didn't start here, but when you smell all of these scents that I was just talking about, all that kind of smell similar to Tuxedo, it's just a unique smell. Very fall, autumn type of smell. I love it. And if I could only keep one and get rid of all of the others, or you know, whatever it is at the end of the day, Moustache I would highly consider keeping and having to get rid of the others just because of the twist that this one provides. And we're going to finish this off with La Nuit de l'Homme by YSL, of course. It looks a little bit different. This is the Edition Art Collector's Edition that came out years back. So if you could have one of these, or you can get one of these for a reasonable price, I would say get it, because you're guaranteed an older formulation. It's not, I guess by today's standards it would be considered vintage, but this isn't like the very first formulation or whatever. Batch is 38K D01. Can't remember where that puts it. And yeah, I just can't remember, but it's older. And so there was a point where people were scrambling, looking left and right to get Edition Art bottles because, you know, you could get that older juice. And it's kind of hard to show on camera, but if you can see through the artwork, you can see the coloration is a little bit darker compared to modern as well. Love it. I love the DNA. And don't go crazy. Don't beat yourself up over vintage. Just buy whatever you can buy for a good price. If it's new, if it's old, whatever, just get it. It's never been a good performer. Like even this is not a great performer. My 4-digit first formulation is not a good performer. It is what it is. And I feel like I have to bring that up every time, because then the comments will get plagued with people trying to, you know, discourage people from going out and trying this or buying this, which I think does this a disservice, because to this day, this is still one of the most unique designer scent DNAs I have ever encountered across, you know, 1,000+ bottles. And I think that's saying something. You know, I would still recommend you to go out and buy La Nuit de l'Homme, or at least try it, you know, first. It's all about the cardamom and the lavender, and it's very spicy and rich and addicting, and just has this personality about it that is unlike anything else. And so, you know, I don't have a ton of cardamom scents. I've got Memo Paris African Leather, which is heavy on the cardamom. But if I had to choose one, I would pick La Nuit de l'Homme. There's a few others out there niche-wise that maybe use the note to some extent, maybe not as heavy as this. I would probably in most instances always choose La Nuit de l'Homme over the other cardamom scents out there. It sounds crazy, but I absolutely love this DNA. Alrighty guys, that's going to do it for me. Some reasonably priced designer scents that I would choose over some of my overpriced niche craziness. I'll link these down below. And look, coming up here in Q4 is going to be craziness. If you've been holding out on purchasing stuff, now's the time to get ready to do so coming up. There's going to be all of these sales, the Black Friday, Cyber Monday, the holiday sales, everything like that. There's going to be some hot restocks on all the rare stuff coming up, like within and through the end of the year, basically. So now is the time to get ready to start making some purchases if you've been wanting to. And I strongly encourage you to get on my mailing list and texting list at the link and number down below. That's where I'm going to be updating you guys consistently with all the restocks and the flash sales and the drops and all of that good stuff. You don't want to miss out. Thank you so much for watching. Stay safe, stay healthy. We'll see you tomorrow with another one. Take care.